Thank you, Susan. Thank you for that generous introduction. You know, leadership has been an interest of mine throughout my career. I was a Soviet specialist and remain a post-Soviet Russian specialist, but the focus of my work on the Soviet Union and on post-Soviet Russia has always been focused principally on the nature of the leadership, that whether it was Khrushchev or Brezhnev or Gorbachev or Yeltsin or Putin were offering, and the strategies that they employed for getting their way, for consolidating their power, and then for convincing people to be led in certain directions. But all along, even as I was focused on the Soviet Union, I was interested in this concept of leadership. I was always asking myself, what does it take to be a great leader? What kinds of strategies do leaders employ to get their way, whether coercively or through bribery or through inspiration? And so I read a lot of the literature on leadership, the theoretical literature, the applied literature, literature about leaders of corporations, literature about leaders of political systems, literature about leaders in the military realm, leaders of social movements, and so on. Always asking myself, how does the nature of the challenge that they are taking on and the conditions under which they came to power influence their strategies for getting their way? How does it influence the challenges that they decided to take on? And so I kept broadening myself, reading biographies after biographies of leaders of numerous types, even as I was teaching my specialty on communist regimes and the Soviet Union. And so I have been broadening myself in the direction of doing what I want to do in this course, and that is look at leadership. Now, we're going to be talking briefly encapsulated about 30 different leaders of different sorts. As you can see from the syllabus that is on the website, and I encourage you to look at that if you want a deeper understanding of where this course is going. And even though I'm looking at 31 leaders, I've sorted them according to the challenges, because the challenge will determine the strategy of leadership that you use. But also, I'm focused on leadership, not per se on great leaders. We're looking at great leaders in order to understand great leadership. But at the same time, when you hear that phrase, great leadership, you're inclined to think, this is admirable leadership. Not necessarily. I'm interested in what works for better or for worse. And oftentimes it's for worse, as in the case of Hitler or Genghis Khan or many other examples of leaders who did things that turned out to be odious. But they did things, even if they were odious, and this is why I have Trump on this list, as a result of having devised leadership strategies that worked for them. And I want to understand what those strategies were, what the conditions were that allowed them to win and allowed them to succeed. Most of the vast majority of the leaders on this list are men. There are some women on this. You see Carol Christ even at the bottom of the syllabus as a leader of a university, because I'm giving one lecture on leaders of universities, another lecture on leaders of corporations, another on leaders of social movements, and so on. So it's not just the political top that we'll be looking at. But I will, in my first lecture, give a lot of general comments about this idea of leadership and about things like who becomes a leader. And there I'll get into the issue of female leadership, women who have been leaders, and talk about some of them in order partly to make sure that they're not overlooked and partly to help us to understand why historically most of the leaders that have been consequential, whether admirable or not, have been men. That is basically the guts of the course. What are the requisites of consequential leadership of different sorts? I myself became an academic leader, and reading all that literature on leadership and what works sensitized me to different strategies I could use for inspiring people to be happy with the direction in which the university was going. And that will help to inform my last lecture, which is on leadership in universities. So I invite you to join me for this journey through 31 different leaders trying to figure out what are the factors that lead to consequential leadership. Thank you.